Hey everyone, Nura here. Welcome to our weekly Astro Healing, where we do Astro recapitulation. We look at the transits that occurred the week before, and then we look also ahead to see how we can strategize. And really, it's all about integrating here and now in the present moment. So, wherever you're joining me from, I just invite you to get a journal, perhaps get a calendar, and just take a moment to connect with what's been going on for you this past week. I know the energies have been really fascinating, and it makes a lot of sense that they would be because we are getting very close to an eclipse portal, which happens about every 6 months or so. So, right now, we're in this closing down of the prior eclipse portal that actually opened last November when we had a series of a new moon solar eclipse and then a full moon lunar eclipse last November in Taurus, Scorpio, and then in a little bit of Sagittarius season last year. And now we're about to head into those same energies again coming up next week. But before we go there, just reflecting on all of the energies that happened last week, the core transits, the ones that I think were really the most impactful were April 17th, we had Mercury conjunct Uranus at 13 degrees Taurus. 13 degrees is also an Aries degree. So, thinking about what was going on for you last weekend, this would have been April 17th when that transit was exact. But like with all transits, it's not always happening only on that day, right? We feel it a little bit before, we feel it usually, we'll notice retrospectively what it was at that time that was coming in, that was something new. So if we put together Mercury, which is our thought processes, and Uranus with what is being liberated, last weekend, there was an invitation to liberate something about your thought processes. In the realm of Taurus, being our resources, what we value, our priorities, and so on. So maybe looking back, seeing if anything like that came up for you. And also reflecting on where you have that 13 degrees of Taurus in your chart. Because even though that was the conjunction last week, we're still very much working with that energy now because it was just a creation of a new cycle. Technically, we have Mercury go through all of the 12 signs, usually in a year or under about a year, similar to the sun, because Mercury is so close to the sun. And then Mercury spends on average about 2 to 3 weeks in each sign, but then up to 6 to 8 weeks when he's retrograde in a sign. So we had Mercury really fly through Aries and then fly through Taurus. And then now we're actually we're bumping up against the next Mercury retrograde period, which is going to coincide with the eclipse portal. So right now it's kind of like the calm before the storm, if you think about it energetically. So it's a really good time to take note of all that's coming up for you in the calm and realizing this is preparation for what comes next. And also trusting that whatever happens, it's all in the realm of liberation, which is for our benefit. So that would have been Sunday, April 17th, 13 degrees of Taurus. And then when we move toward Tuesday, April 19th, that's when we have the sun also enter Taurus. And so I don't know about you, but I have been really loving this Taurus season. You can maybe let me know in the comments how it's been for you so far. And I really love Taurus because I'm a Taurus rising. And so when the sun enters Taurus, I start to feel this sense of renewal because it's almost kind of like a birthday. So my sun is Sagittarius. So every December, I get my actual solar return and I get this revitalization of my solar power, my solar energy. And that happens once a year for everybody. But then also around Taurus season, about a week into Taurus season, I get the sun passing over my ascendant and into my first house, which also feels very similarly like a solar return because it's like I just went through all 12 houses, the sun moving through all 12 houses, and now it's coming into my body in a new way. So thinking about where you have Taurus in your chart, which house, and knowing that every year there's going to be similar themes in Taurus season because it's going to be the same. So having that awareness of, well, how do I typically feel during Taurus season? It's going to give you a lot of information on how you can strategize, how you can make the most of it, where to focus and center your creative energy. And also realizing that Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's a Venusian sign and also has association with the heart chakra. Speaking of chakras, some of you might know about the Venus gate. And so we've been working for about the past month with the Venus gate correlating to the throat chakra. So we've been doing a whole bunch of healing and clearing with the throat chakra, which is actually really timely, given that we're about to step into a Mercury retrograde when it's ideal that our throat chakra would be cleared so that we don't create problems with our throat chakra. So you might have noticed over the past 3.5 weeks, just issues coming up around how you're speaking. But we're about to switch next week. And that's going to be April 26th, which is my mom's birthday. We're going to have a Venus gate shift into the heart. So we'll be working with Taurus, Sun in Taurus, which rules the heart chakra. But then we also have the Venus gate entering the heart chakra at 23 degrees Pisces. So that's more of an advanced study of astrology. But the Venus gates, they come through the lineage of shamanic astrology, really brought into focus by Kaelin Castell and in the shamanic school of astrology. So if you're curious to learn more about that, I highly recommend it. But also on my website at nurarochelle.com, you can find a way to access your own Venus star point. And so if that's something that you're curious about and you want to learn a little bit more about what Venus star point were you born under and how does that influence your creative cycles, definitely reach out and I will point you in the right direction to that resource. Because I feel that, especially during a Taurus season, being a Venusian sign, it's really important to understand, well, what is our attraction language? How are we creating? And having the awareness of what chakras we're working with can just give us a lot of information around, okay, what do we get to heal and clear? And that's going to make it easier for us to create what it is that we want to create right now. Okay, so what else happened last week that was really, oh, you and my mom share a birthday. Yay. It's a great day. I just love solar Taurians. There's just this absolute ability to fully enjoy life and be in pleasure. She's really taught me that, how to just allow life to be good, not make it so hard. So I really love her for that. Hopefully that's been your experience holding that Taurus energy too. So we had also last week Juno enter Pisces. That was just a couple days ago, Wednesday, April 20th. And Pisces is again about divine love. And so Juno, the goddess asteroid of soulmates, soul contracts, you might have had somebody come in who is going to be teaching you about divine love in some way. Another way you could look at this, especially depending on where you have Pisces in your chart, is higher self commitment, higher self relationship, higher self guidance coming through. So just really be on the lookout for that. I know for me, what I've really been noticing, and I said this last week too, because the Pisces energy, it's in between my 11th and 12th houses, which both houses have a lot to do with dreams. Both our dreams that we have for the future, but also our literal subconscious realm and dreams. And so I've been having wild dreams. But with the Juno in Pisces, that entrance, especially in the last 2 days, I have had incredibly vivid dreams connecting to relationships. And Juno has a lot to do with soulmates, soul contracts. So pay attention to the links between your dreams and the people. And does the content of your daily life, is it being reflected in your subconscious? Or is it influencing your day in some way? Is it causing you to talk to people in a different way? Is it causing you to maybe reach out to certain people? I know, for example, for me, if I have a dream about somebody, I'm going to tell them. And then it usually sparks a conversation. And then I realize like, oh, I had a dream about you. Oh, there's something, we were supposed to talk about something. And so there might be an opportunity like that for you as well, especially since this past Wednesday, April 20th. Okay. So this is always a good practice to look at your week prior and ask, what was it that I came away with? What new insight was brought to me last week? And it doesn't have to be this big deal thing. Sometimes it's just another week, it seems like all the rest of the weeks. But honoring that nonetheless, honoring the mundane, honoring where it seems like things are kind of just scooting along, always the same. And then, retrospectively realizing those are actually really beautiful, important times. So if that's been how your week is, how can you honor the sacred in the ordinary, the beauty in the everyday, in the mundane? If your week was not chill, what other kind of wisdom could you glean from that? And how could you look at the sun entering Taurus, um, Juno entering Pisces, how these would be influencing you at this time? Taurus and Pisces, by the way, they are both yin signs, meaning energy pointing inwards, really inviting us to explore the internal realms and also to receive. In our culture, we tend to think that a lot of what we're going to do and achieve in life, it comes from the work that we do outside of us, or the efforting or the striving. It's a very masculine approach, which it definitely is required. We require the feminine and the masculine, but if we're just in the masculine, we tend to get burned out. So really, with the Taurus and Pisces, I think there's a beautiful opportunity to actually allow yourself to receive a little bit more, whatever it is. If it's receiving good food, Taurus, if it's receiving imagination time, Pisces, like allowing yourself to just sit there in the second attention. It's like you're just looking at something and you're not thinking about it, and all of a sudden you're in the dream space, right? Like that second attention space is really important when you're seemingly doing nothing, right? But that's where the insights will come in, and that's where you actually receive so much. So for me, the overlay has been with the Taurus and Pisces is maybe doing like 15 minutes of yoga, not even something really intense, and then just sitting there and staring out at the trees and allowing just whatever wants to come in, and then journaling about it. And that could be maybe a 30-minute practice. So I'm curious to hear from you. What are your practices like? And do you feel like you are allowing yourself to receive enough? And if not, in what ways could you receive more? In what ways could you open up to receive more? Thank you for the comments, for the people who are here live. I really appreciate being in this space with you. Okay, so I pulled a card for last week about what we are all collectively releasing, and it's the Emperor, which is really interesting because I tend to view the Emperor as a really solid card when it comes to having really healthy boundaries, knowing what you want, knowing what you need. But when it's something that we're releasing, maybe it's anywhere that we've been rigid. I kind of see this a releasing of rigidity. Maybe you are a tarot reader or play in the realm of tarot and have your whole own idea around what this might mean. And so looking at what has been going on in your life for this past week, is there something that you're releasing around also perhaps external authority with the Emperor? Like something connected to the world, something connected to the systems in the world at large, and how you get to be perhaps more the authority of your own life. So something in that regard. Oh, I love this. This comment, thinking about this mundane and chill vibe experiencing this week. Awesome. Eating a lot of fruit, which is really, really great. Really nourishing in terms of hydration, fruit for sure. Usually more interested in salt and grounding food. Me too. I love salty food. I think it's the Taurus rising. But that actually is interesting because I think we do need to eat differently in every solar season. So in every season, like fall, winter, spring, summer, it makes sense. It feels obvious to say that, like, oh, maybe I should eat differently. If it's hot outside, I'm going to want to eat more fruits, vegetables, light. If it's winter, I'm going to want to eat more soups and warming food and grounding food. But I also think there's a subtle shift between, say, Aries season, which we had last month, which is yang, cardinal fire. There's a lot of energy. There's that blossoming. And so we might feel a call to remedy that if we feel like it's too much. And then with Taurus season, it being already if you're familiar with Ayurveda, it's a very kapha sign, tends toward heaviness, tends toward sluggishness. We might actually want to eat lighter during a Taurus season to almost elevate the highest essences of the sign of Taurus, rather than sometimes the saltier, rich foods kind of make us want to sit a little bit more back and just kind of sink into ourselves. So I don't think there's a right or wrong there, just experimenting with what feels right for you, but just observing. And that's, if you're a student of astrology or want to be, wherever you are in this journey, I think being in that observation correlation is the absolute best way to learn. And it also makes it the most relevant for you. And that's why this recapitulation work is so important for me, because it's how you learn astrology and it's how you make it make sense for you, because it's never about fitting into this box that somebody else made about what an archetype means or what an archetype is supposed to feel like, or good or bad, like putting all these value judgments on it. It's really just, what is your relationship with these energies, and how can you flow with them in the way that really supports you to live your best life? And that's what it's all about to me. So just thought I'd repeat that in case any of you are new to my style or philosophy here. Okay, so looking at the week ahead, I called in the Eight of Pentacles, so meaningful work. What is your meaningful work looking like? And this could be literally in the realm of your contribution to society, your job, but also I think just daily life. Like, what is really that thing that you do that fills you with purpose? That's, you would do it even if you didn't get paid too. That's also very Eight of Pentacles, in my opinion. And it's that thing that is going to benefit your community. So there's something about that we're really calling in right now. And I think that's very important, given that we're about to step into an eclipse portal. So we're having, okay, first I'll kind of go back in time. So April 25th, we are going to have Mercury enter the pre-retrograde shadow phase at 26 degrees Taurus. So anytime we have the pre-retrograde shadow phase, you want to already start paying attention to the thoughts coming in and the content of the story that's preparing to unravel, because you're going to visit it 3 times. So between April 25th and May 10th, that will be the first leg of the Mercury retrograde experience. That will be basically where you're collecting the themes and the content for what will actually be really unpacked and unraveled during the actual Mercury retrograde time. So that's beginning April 25th. Nothing to be afraid of, just being aware and maybe keeping really solid journal notes, particularly in the realm where you have between 26 degrees Taurus and 4 degrees Gemini, because that's going to be the retrograde window. Then April 26th, my mom's birthday, we have the Venus gate, moving into the heart chakra, healing and clearing anything in the way of divine love, because it's in Pisces. We're working with heart chakra, Pisces, Venus gate. Then April 29th, we are going to have Pluto station retrograde. And so Pluto stations retrograde for about 6 months every year. So this is not some out of the ordinary event. But what we do want to be aware of is where we have 28 degrees of Capricorn. Also, 28 degrees corresponds with Cancer, according to Degree Theory by Nikola Stoyanovich. And for me, especially bringing in that the opposing signs of Cancer, Capricorn, I think it has a lot to do actually with both of these cards. Where are you releasing any attachment to old systems? Because that's Capricorn. And then where can you really lean into meaningful work that will support you, support your community, support your family? Because there has to do with nurturing whenever we're talking about Cancer, and also boundaries. It's very Cancer, Capricorn when you combine those. So just realizing that there's so much transforming in our society right now that I think is inviting all of us into greater authority over our own lives, which also means greater responsibility, but also a realization that we already are that. Like, you already are powerful. And it's just a remembrance of that. And like any planet, whenever we're working with a retrograde, it's this invitation inward to look at yourself. So observing, okay, something's going on out in the world, maybe with the economy. What does this feel like for me? What is this pulling up in me? What is this triggering in me? Like, Pluto's going to show us our triggers. Pluto's also going to show us our subconscious fears. But there's an opportunity to create something meaningful. So completely stepping out of fear into faith. This has really been my mantra, faith over fear in everything. And that very much applies to Pluto retrograde. So just be aware that that is a shift that we are going to be witnessing next week, but we'll be working with it long term over the summer. And then the big transit, the big happening next week is going to be April 30th. We are going to have the new moon solar eclipse at 10 degrees, 28 minutes Taurus. So this will be a very important degree for you to know where you have that in your chart. 10 degrees is also a Capricornian degree. So having a lot to do with taking responsibility for your resources, your finances, because in the realm of Taurus, but also when it's a new moon in general, we want to be in a receptive mode. We want to be allowing the new information to be seeded. And then when it's an eclipse, we almost want to have even more hands off the wheel. Sometimes we'll hear things like, oh, at a new moon, you want to be setting intentions and you want to be knowing what it is that you want to manifest and all of these things. I think with an eclipse portal, you actually kind of want to have hands off and just have ear to the ground, heart open, mind open, and observe what wants to come in. But know that the content of what will be wanting to come in will be very connected to where you have 10 degrees Taurus in your chart and having to do with taking responsibility for your resources. And it could also be taking inventory of your resources, knowing what you have and knowing what you might have overlooked too. Because it's easy to overlook things, especially. And this will become more important for the second part of this eclipse season, which will be not for a couple weeks. May 15th will be the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, where are other people not acknowledging your resources or not acknowledging your value? And where do you get to say, well, it doesn't matter if you don't acknowledge my value, I acknowledge my value. So it's valuable because I said so, because I'm deciding that. So that's kind of the foundation of radical responsibility when it comes to your finances, your resources. Prosperity mindset is really based on that. It's you decide what you're worth. You decide the money that comes into your life. You decide what you allow yourself to receive. I think that's a really big invitation during this solar eclipse in Taurus. And then that same day, April 30th, we're also going to have Venus conjunct Jupiter. And so the two benefics, Venus, human love, and Jupiter are opening to higher consciousness, coming together at 27 degrees Pisces. This having a lot of invitation again into that faith, but also forming relationships, Venus, forming relationships that bring you into a sense of spiritual security, because that's Pisces. So where can you bring in greater spiritual security? How can that also inform your physical security? How can you also see that they are one and the same thing? And then May 1st, we are going to have the Beltane portal opening. So we've got a lot coming up this coming week. And I think using this time, especially from now until the new moon solar eclipse, to allow yourself to really reflect on what it was that opened up for you during the last eclipse season, last November. And you can think back to, well, what was being created at that time? What were your intentions? What went well? What didn't go well? Where did you think you would go? And did it work out? Did it not work out? Because a lot of that similar content will be coming up for you. And then it's almost like the more clear you are of the old story, or the more integrated you are with the old story, which is why recapitulation work is so important, the more present you can be, and the more you can allow what really wants to come in for you to come in for this cycle. And I think it's a really big prosperity invitation for everybody. So that is my profound wish for you. Okay. If you have any questions about anything that I shared today, definitely feel free to leave it in the comments, and I do my best to respond to all of them. You can also reach out to me at any time if you have questions about mentorship or courses or readings at my website, nurarochelle.com. And otherwise, I hope you all have a beautiful weekend. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this space with me. Okay, bye for now.